topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. It's Tuesday morning, and I'm thrilled to be here with y'all. So what I want to share is that it's been an amazing ride with y'all. And I want to share a story about a global entrepreneur that we helped in an African country. We helped them get a loan for their fertilizer. And lo and behold, just heard back today from Kiva, KIVA.org, that whole town has become self-dependent. And think about it. We may think like, we're buying a book and partial profits from this book are going to help someone. Every little bit matters. It's almost, think about it, when drops come together, it can form an ocean. So thank you for buying our books, because it works three ways. Not only it helps you, it helps me, because we are making an impact together, and it helps an entrepreneur across the globe somewhere in little form or shape. So if you have not gotten our copy, please get either one of the copies, either the Entrepreneur Garden or Expert to Influencer, because those books will change your lives. I've poured my heart and soul into them, and they will help you become the best entrepreneur that's out there. Or even if you're not an entrepreneur, it will help you develop an entrepreneurial mindset and become an influencer. That's a rising tide that lifts all boats. It's not just about the likes and follows, it's about impacting people. And I want to invite you to take an hour of your time every month and help somebody with no strings attached. And when you do that, you're starting that cycle of kindness. You never know that somebody will pass it on to someone else. So find that time, whether it is 10 minutes somewhere or 5 minutes on a day, spread it out on that 30 days during a month, and you'll find that you'll be able to help someone. So let's invite our guests in. Welcome, Dr. T and Captain Mama. How are y'all doing today?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us on. I'm so happy that I get to be with Captain Mama again.
Oh, that's
thank you
fantastic.
also. Yeah, thank you. We met at the summit, and we spent quite a bit of time on the phone after. So this is wonderful of you to think of this pairing. Very grateful. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we usually start out with a question from childhood. When you were a little girl, is there a moment or a person that left a mark on you and that you remember even today? What about you, Dr. T?
You asked, I didn't realize you asked different questions each time about childhood. Let me think about that. A person. When I think about my childhood, I was I was born in New York City to an immigrant mom and an unmarried immigrant mom. So it was just the two of us. We had a very small family. But my paternal grandmother was my only living grandparent at the time. And when I think about my childhood, I just think of all the love and nurturing that she would do and all the good food that she would make. She would bake banana bread, make apple pies, and I still do. I used to love putting whipped cream on my hand and eating it. And so when I'd go to her house, there was always ample whipped cream. So I just still love and nurturing and good food from my grandmother. That's one of my favorite people from my childhood.
Mm. What about you, Graciela?
I'm having an entrepreneurial memory of my father. And what happened was we wanted to like sell candy in our neighborhood. Like we had this idea that, not everybody has parents that take them out for dinner or, doing things like this and then stop by the candy store. So we thought, wouldn't it be fun if we had our own candy store in the neighborhood and we could sell candy? And so my father supported this idea that my sister and I had. He actually built a little candy store for us. Like if you've seen like those Snoopy cartoons with the lemonade stand and the lemonade 5 cents for Goofy, right? If you've seen those little cartoons, it was like that, but it's probably 3 times wider. Like 2 people could fit. We had actual candy inventory. And so I have this memory of a supportive father of constructing our candy store because we were in a brand new neighborhood and other houses were being constructed. So there's like piles of lumber that we could use. And so I think that's it. It's like being encouraged to do something different and to actually build it. And then, of course, we were like the hub of the neighborhood once we started selling candy. And then we also could buy candy for like 2 cents and sell it for a nickel. Everybody's so happy that they could get their candy right there. So that's what I thought of when you asked that question is what that was like to have that support from my father. He passed November 2020. So I think that's why I thought of him immediately. And when my mom hears this, she'll be like, again, you're talking about your dad. But they were both very supportive. But the memory is of that support with my dad with the little candy store.
I'm
And my
so
sister
sorry
and
for
I.
your loss.
Yeah, it was 6 days of lung cancer to death. It was very fast.
Mm.
It was very shocking. But he didn't suffer much at all. So that's the good news. Yeah.
So it never ceases to amaze me how when we grow up, we lose sight of what's important in life. And the reason I ask this question is it illustrates that we don't remember expensive gifts. I've never been through hundreds of episodes. I've never heard a guest say that, oh, this fantastic toy or anything like that. Those are the memories of love and nurturing and
Mm-hmm.
support. So it's so
Mm-hmm.
important that we bring back the vision of what's important in life. So, Graciela, tell me as you grew, where did your life take you?
I grew up in Colorado. That's where all of this took place. And it was a kind of a neighborhood of tract homes, just house, as they do. Brand new school. So that was great. And as I grew up and I started having friends in high school, I was on the volleyball team, the basketball team, and I played soccer and I was in a marching band. So I got really into the student activities. Like I was very athletic. And I started hanging out with people who did not live in my neighborhood, which of course then starts informing your worldview of other people live differently, right? And what I remember very well by age 15, I remember I'd met a lot of friends on the volleyball team, for example, who had college educated parents. My parents were both from Mexico, so immigrant family, just like Dr. Thandi. And so we didn't have anybody in my neighborhood who had been to college or who knew anything about college or who talked about attending university. So hanging out with my friends, I started getting this idea that, well, if I want to go to Austria like Claudia in the summer or Paris like Vanjie, then I need to go become a college educated woman if I want to see the world. So I remember that so clearly. And that was my only guidepost that, took me on to the rest of my life. But it was that mix of being with musical people and being with the yearbook people and the different teams, that diversity of experience I was having that started opening my mind to what else could be for me beyond high school. So that's how I want to answer your question. It was just like this intentional looking of what's possible outside my block.
Absolutely. And it's always hard because, we grow up with our own perspectives. And as we get exposed to different people, we start developing new perspectives. And it's so important to have those perspectives. And Dr. T, being a child of single mom, I'm sure you had a very strong presence of female leadership in your life. How did you get to the medical field?
It was a circuitous route. My mom was, when I was born, my mom was a student. I was always have been so proud of my mom. She actually, both of my parents were from Southern Africa, and they both were granted scholarships to study in the United States because they were just that smart. And my mom went on to get her PhD. She was one of the first women in her country, her small country, Eswatini, in Southern Africa, to get a PhD in educational psychology. And my dad, on the other hand, went on to become a medical doctor. And so I guess as the hybrid of the two of them, I became very interested both in psychology and also in medicine. When I was in high school, over the summers, I would work in my dad's office, essentially as a medical assistant. I would do EKGs on people and check their blood pressure. And I just got a chance to see my dad at work and see how he was able to help people. And that made me interested. But I was also interested in a lot of other things, which I still am. And so when I went to college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I ended up doing which if there's any of your listeners who have college age kids or are in college themselves, you can just, what you do in college doesn't have to define what you do for the rest of your life. So because I wasn't sure, I ended up doing what's called a post-baccalaureate pre-med program, where I did all of my requirements for medical school after I had graduated from college. But then, even then, I still didn't go to medical school after that. I ended up working at a job, and I was making money, and I was living life and having fun, and the idea of going back to school was like, whatever. But then 9/11 happened, and it was just, I had a quarter life crisis, and it was one of those moments where it was like, what am I doing with my life? Is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? And at that time, I had a great job. I was working for a candy company. I literally had enough candy in my life to bring candy to all 180 of my medical school classmates. So, but it was a great company. But I decided that on 9/11, I decided by the next year, I would either be in medical school or I would be doing something in the pharmaceutical industry. And by the next year, I was enrolled in medical school. So that's how I got into medical school.
And how did you decide? I know there's so many different fields where you can go in medicine. You can go to being an ER doctor, or you can be a physiatrist, or you can be an eye surgeon, which you are, and you can be a cardiologist. How did you pick your niche?
So I have always been passionate about women's empowerment, women's health. So I just knew that when I went to medical school, I was going to do OBGYN, which is obstetrics and gynecology. I was the student leader of the OBGYN student interest group. I was all in with OBGYN. But as life sometimes happens, sometimes things happen that I don't always expect. And for the first time in my life, a couple things happened. For the first time in my life, I needed to wear glasses. And that was the first time that I really thought on a personal level about the importance of sight. And then another thing happened. I had this teacher who was amazing. She was just one of the most amazing people that I had ever met. And she was an ophthalmologist, and everybody loved her. And ironically, now she's not even practicing ophthalmology. She's an artist. But at the time, she was an ophthalmologist, and I thought she was so cool, and I loved the work that she was doing. And then the third thing that happened is that I saw a patient get LASIK eye surgery, and in less than 10 minutes, this person went from not being able to see the alarm clock when they woke up to being able to see. And I have never seen anybody seem happier in my life. And when I saw how happy that person was, I said, I want to be a part of that. So I pivoted, which the wonderful thing about life is that no matter where we are, no matter what direction that we are headed in, we can always make a decision to pivot.
Mm-hmm. And making the best out of it. So what I'm hearing is that it's so important to be flexible. As you had mentioned, your life took a lot of different journeys to get to where you are at. And it's being open that, okay, something new may show up. Rather than getting fixated on one idea, when you are open to different things and different possibilities, you can create your own opportunities. And Graciela, I know you did not have any exposure to aviation. How did you end up in aviation industry and that to in military?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, oh my goodness, can I please piggyback on this pivoting idea? Because that is the story. After looking around and saying, well, I want to be a college educated person, I started asking, well, how can I be a college educated person as a oldest of 5 kids, born to Mexican immigrants? And so I went to my high school counselor, and she was a saint, and she had an idea. She said, come to my house for dinner, meet my husband, and he will tell you what he did, because her husband had left Appalachia. He had 8 siblings. I only had 4. And come learn what Wendell did. So that is how I learned about the Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps scholarship to go to college. And because of this mentoring, I got a scholarship paid for by the Air Force, basically for 4 years, to go to Berkeley. And then my counselor helped me apply to Berkeley. Mind you, I'm not in California at the time. I'm in Colorado. So this is a whole crazy journey. And why Berkeley? Because it had the #1 architecture school, and I knew that's what I wanted to study. Architecture, Air Force, what? But the Air Force said, yes, here's a scholarship in architecture. I'm like, awesome. I guess they have architects in the Air Force, but they don't. And
There
so
you
2
go.
years later, when I'm already committed to serve for 4 years, that's when the Air Force takes us in the summer after our 2nd year to learn different careers, meet different officers doing different things. And that's when I learned that there were no architects in the Air Force, and I would be filling potholes in the civil engineering squadron. I would be like pouring asphalt to fill potholes on the base, and I was very sad. So, but I'm still committed for 4 years because I have the scholarship. So then the very next day began my pivot. They took us to a pilot training base in Arizona, and I got a flight with a lady captain who was a flight instructor, Captain Dolly DeLisa. And we went up, and it was 103 in July in Phoenix, and we had the oxygen on our face, and we're flying and going upside down, and she's teaching me to roll, and I'm having the best time ever. Keep in mind, this is my 2nd time on an airplane. The first time was the flight to get to the base, and the 2nd time is in this aerobatic military jet trainer.
Ooh.
So I'm having an amazing time flying and just loving it. It's like better than roller coaster. So we land, and Captain DeLisa says, you're the first person I took flying today who did not throw up. And she says, a lot of these guys come, they think they're going to be fighter pilots, but just, one time in a hot plane, and they start questioning that. You can overcome your air sickness. That's okay. But she said, but you had a great time. This is something you can do, she said. And I'm like, well, but I have a scholarship in architecture. I got to go do civil engineering. I'm like saying all these ridiculous things. She goes, no, stop, cadet, stop. This is the Air Force. You have a scholarship. Go back and tell the staff you want to fly. And so that's how it happened. It was this opportunity and saying yes to the opportunity, like to take the orientation flight. Not everybody did, but I was curious. And so I went for it. And then here she is mentoring me in the little 5-minute taxi back. But it was the pivotal moment that told me that I could go fly, which had never happened in the 2 years prior, because I didn't have my eye in the sky. I didn't have my eye on flying. I was architecture, civil engineering. But that's how it happened. It was a moment, and I was like, well, I don't really want to go to civil engineering anyway. So that's how it happened. And then I just followed the process, to apply and then get selected. And the Air Force chooses pilots, navigators, and other rated officers to go train to get wings. And I was selected for the most mathematically challenging to be an Air Force navigator. And that's where I got trained. And that was a full year training after graduating from Berkeley.
Well, Graciela, what a story. Saying yes to yourself, saying yes to curiosity. And when you did that, it opened up doors that you didn't even think about it. And I want to thank you for your service, because you are our heroes and heroes so thank you for your service. So tell us, as you continued your journey, where did it take you?
So at the end of the training, which I was the only woman in the class of 32 that started and 24 that graduate, because there's always this attrition. After that journey, I selected the KC-135 aerial refueling tanker. So that's what you see here in my virtual background. You see an airplane getting refueled in the sky. And it's an F-117 stealth fighter. That was one of my favorite planes to refuel. But yeah, we refuel in the sky. We're a flying gas station. So immediately where it took me was getting stationed up in Washington State, getting fully qualified with my crew and getting ready to deploy. And then immediately I found myself in Saudi Arabia at the tail end of the Gulf War, when we started patrolling the southern skies of Iraq. The Operation Southern Watch is what they called it. And quick story about that, I was one of the first 4 crews in country, and we flew 1, 2, 3, 4 sorties a day, all combat air operations over Baghdad, on the south of Baghdad. And this is when Saddam Hussein was actually using his aircraft to basically commit genocide against his own people. So we were there really to stop him from flying his aircraft. And it was hostile. And we got chased by the Russian MiGs that he had every day. And so every day we were flying combat air operations. And keep in mind, I'm a baby lieutenant. Like, this is my first deployment. I'm like this baby lieutenant over there. And of the first 4 crews, each tanker, each KC-135 has 4 people. And of the 4 crews, that's 16 air crew, I was the only woman there. All the other crews were all male. My crew was 3 guys and me. And that matters because after we fly, I think 25 or 30 sorties, the colonel nominated all of us for Air Medal, which is like a big deal and necessary for promotion kind of thing. And so we got nominated because we already had like 30 or 40 sorties. And what happened is the Pentagon shipped back 3 packages with 4 medals each, and a letter to our crew addressed to my aircraft commander that we could not receive an Air Medal because there was a female on the crew. And this was 15 months before the law changed. So I wasn't even supposed to be over there. Oops. But they needed me, and I was there. And so we did not get recognized with an Air Medal while we were there. And when the law changed, the Pentagon sat on it for a while, and eventually they kind of mailed our Air Medals to us back to our base. And I finally got my Air Medal. And I actually learned during the pandemic, thank you, it's a weird story, baby lieutenant, first deployment. I learned that I'm actually the first Latina Air Force aviator to ever earn an Air Medal. Somebody asked the question, I said, who was there before me? Right? So it's kind of a little weird footnote, but I'm very proud of that. I went back to Saudi Arabia 3-4 times more after that, but nothing was like that first deployment. So that's just one of the places it took me. I went probably 27 other countries to do other really cool missions, but it was always refueling and taking cargo and people. So it was a good 10 years.
Well, I gotta tell you again, thank you for your services. And how powerful is that women can fly? And folks, we're not literally just talking here about literally flying. I'm talking about soaring in your lives and taking those chances, because look at these two power women. We have got two powerhouses today. They have blazed those trails for themselves, finding their paths where they could create their own destiny and manifest what they wanted, their opportunities. So, what a wonderful story, Graciela. And I'm sure, Dr. T, as you traveled in your life's journey, like as an eye surgeon, tell us, how did you feel as a woman going through? And I know there, in comparison to aviation, there are more women in medical history, but what was it like, and did you face any challenges?
Do I? There is a saying that we expect women to work like they don't have children and mother like they don't have a job. Right. And now in recent years, just within the last 20 years, for the first time, we had more female applicants apply to medical or get accepted into medical school than male applicants. And similarly, just in even more recent years than that, we've had more female ophthalmologists get accepted into ophthalmology training. So what that means is that we have a lot more younger female ophthalmologists, but the people that have been there for the longest are still majority men. And still, even in today's world, a female ophthalmologist gets paid 75 cents to the dollar that every male ophthalmologist gets paid. And that's for doing the exact same work. So that's one challenge. Really learning to understand my worth and negotiate for my worth. Another challenge is trying to juggle. I have two beautiful little daughters, so trying to juggle motherhood and with employers who they can't relate to, I have to be at daycare by 6 o'clock, or they're going to call the police to come get my daughter because they had wives who were taking care of the child's rearing for their family. So there's a whole, and then I'm looked at as having a poor work ethic, right? Because I'm not staying later, or because I have boundaries around what I can do because I have a family and I have little people to raise. So that's been a challenge. And then even just with the biases that the public has about what a doctor is supposed to look like, what a surgeon is supposed to look like. Even the other week, I work in an office and there's a male doctor and me. And I've heard, because I can hear the front desk, and I've heard patients say that I've never seen, by the way, that say, I don't want to see the girl doctor. I just want to see the man.
It's fascinating that we can see things like that. And I know that you're also serving as a military officer. Can you also tell about that?
And then when you throw that in, that just makes things more complicated. But again, and one of the things that I'm learning in life is this idea of a flow versus force. And if you have a river, if you just float down the river, they say there's no such thing as straight lines in nature. There's always bends. And so if you just lie on your back and flow with the river will take you downstream, right? But if you try to draw a line between this point on the river and then downstream on the river, and you try to take the shortest point, that's going to require you to dig a hole. It's going to require you to do all kinds of acrobatics to do that same thing, that if you just relaxed and went with the flow, you would get to the same point. And so that's one of the lessons that I have learned. And part of my flow came when a few things had happened. I did my residency, my ophthalmology training at Howard University Hospital in Washington, D.C. And as part of our training, we would rotate at it's now known as Walter Reed. At that time, that's the Naval Center. We would rotate there, and we would take care of the soldiers. And that was my first experience with the reality of war. It is one thing to watch the news and hear, okay, 5 soldiers killed, 200 injured. It is a different experience to be in the room where you see a 21-year-old boy or man with his leg blown off and his mother crying in the chair on the side. It just changed my whole perspective of what the real personal impact of war is on many families. And I wanted to be, a lot of people that end up some people join the military because of legacy and desire to serve, but a lot of people join the military because that's the only choice that they have. That's their way out of a difficult situation. And I wanted to be a part of serving that community. And then another thing that seems like totally random happened. I was dating this guy, and he was kind of a jerk. He broke up with me. He was relocating to Houston, Texas, and I was supposed to help him pick out a house. But by the time we broke up, I still had my ticket. I couldn't change my ticket, so I ended up stranded in Houston, right? Horrible. But at the time, I was really into Joel Osteen. I was watching Joel Osteen, the preacher, who has a huge church in Houston, all the time. And so I said to myself, well, you know what? If I'm stranded in Houston, I might as well go to his church. So I took myself down to Lakewood Church. That's the name of his church. And after the service, if you're new and you want to meet him, now his church is in it's like a football stadium. It's huge, humongous. But if you want to meet him, you can go wait in the line to meet him. And the line is really long. It's really long because there's a lot of people. So I'm standing in the line, and I'm a chatty Cathy. It turns out I am standing next to a military recruiter and his wife. And I ended up having this long conversation about all the benefits and the great things about joining the military. And by the end of the conversation, I got to meet Joel Osteen, which was cool. But then I became really excited about exploring joining the military. And I explored the different branches, and the Army was the one that made sense. So 2 days before my birthday in 2008, I joined the United States Army.
Well, thank you for your services. How fortunate we are to have 2 of our Sheryls over here. What a story and what a journey. And here's the thing. This is such a great example for women. Yes, you can soar in life. You can create opportunities. You can go where nobody has gone before, and think about it. Just a simple visit to a church, and it changed the trajectory of your life. So be curious, be open. So Graciela, as you kind of move through your life, tell us where you're right now and what's happening.
Yeah, so the trajectory from the airplane changed radically, as things do in life for women like us who like change. I decided it was right before my majors board. So I think I was about 6 months away from a major. So that would be the fourth rank. I was looking ahead. And if I got selected to be a major, they're going to move me to an Air Force base in Illinois to headquarters to do planning and basically desk stuff. And I was like, no, I don't want that because I'm in the Air Force to fly. I've already stayed beyond my commitment. So now I really like, I have the power to decide to stay, to make major, to go do the staff things that they do, and then Pentagon, blah, blah, blah. Or I can say, this is great. Thank you for the college scholarship. I stayed a year and a half beyond my commitment, love the flying, and I'm going to go do something else. And that's what I did. So preparing for that transition, I finished my master's degree in international business management and marketing to pivot into technology. And I really wanted to work in Silicon Valley. So with the new credential of a master's degree, paid for, by the way, by American Association of University Women. So for all women and all parents with daughters, please know there's this awesome organization that's 100 years old that funds the education of women from all over the world. Okay, they're big office in DC. So AAUW funded, I became a fellow, and they funded my as a career development grant. So it's like a grant to transition. So I finished that while I was on active duty and flying and deploying. So it was kind of hard to get everything done while coming and going. But that opened the door now for me to explore a new career. The problem was persuading people to interview me for a technology marketing job when I'm coming out of a military airplane. So I got to practice the art of informational interviews, of intriguing people, of marketing my relevant skills going forward. And I had a big community, including women veterans, who helped me. So I popped over to Silicon Valley. I got, my personal network from Berkeley hooked me up with an interview. A saxophone player from the marching band, in fact, somebody I had been in the band with, interviewed me. And I got hired by Siemens, a German company, to work in San Jose. And so I got to do this crazy transition. So this is why I believe that we can just keep reinventing ourselves. This is why I believe that any career you want can be yours. You just have to plan for it, and then, really have that professional network to open doors for you. And then you have to just keep asking that how can I question that got me into college in the first place on the scholarship. How can I work in Silicon Valley? How can I become a marketing manager? How can I, break into tech? So I did that. And then after 10 years of marketing, launching products, briefing media, briefing executives in English and también en español, because I'm bilingual, there was a layoff. Okay, so I got to do that and really get a solid foundation of business skills. And then there was a sudden layoff, and remember the 2008, 2009 time period? So when all the layoffs happened, they actually closed this office and moved everybody into remote offices. The German headquarters did during the recession. So then I was like, okay, I get to do a new thing now. And I'd already been doing a lot of writing and public speaking, kind of on the side. And so I very, very quickly decided this is the moment where I want to have my own business. And so I started Gracefully Global Group. I know, right? I wasn't planned to do it at that moment, but that's how it happened. And I started Gracefully Global Group, which is a independent publishing and marketing communications company. I started it then, and I just kept doing marketing work for people. But then very quickly, I began to do the publishing that I wanted to do, not only with the trade journals and all the articles I was doing as a freelancer, but now I actually got mentored by a publisher in San Francisco on how to become a publisher after she published my book. So it was really a big moment of switching over to the creative work to create the company, and it happened because of that layoff. So it was that opportunity that presented itself. And,
Congratulations.
Yeah.
What an achievement.
Thank you. And we just celebrated 12 years last fall. We have published like 11 ISBNs now. And I chose this virtual background because of your theme of Women Can Fly. That unusual story that I told you about flying for the Air Force, there was a memoir one day, but that's not as interesting to me as inspiring lots of children in English and Spanish. And so this is my Captain Mama children's aviation book series, directly inspired by my aviation service. And it's the first ever children's book series in English and Spanish where moms fly in the airplane.
Oh, fantastic. And where can people find those?
CaptainMama.com is the easiest place. They're also on Amazon, but I don't like to send people to Jeff Bezos as much as I like to send them to our own e-commerce site. So yeah, CaptainMama.com is the place.
Absolutely. Yeah. What a journey. And Dr. T, tell us your journey to now, and where can people find you?
My journey till now. It's interesting. What I thought medicine would be like was very different than what it actually was, with the reality of it. I thought that, I would be the superhero with the cape that would come down and save everybody and help everybody. And what I found is that oftentimes it's my patients that help me more than I help them. What I found is that oftentimes, even with my best effort, like one of the things I specialize in is glaucoma, which can cause irreversible blindness. And if it's treated, you can stop the progression. But one of the things that broke my heart are people who, especially the ones that have already gone blind in one eye. So before you go blind, it's just a theoretical risk, right? The doctor's just talking. I may or may not believe her. But now that you've lost vision in one eye, you know that this can happen. But then they still don't do what they need to do for their other eye. And sometimes there's nothing that I can say that will help to shift them. And I had to come to a point of peace in myself and say that, it's not my job to save everybody. It's my job to care for everybody. It's my job to love everybody. It's my job to make sure that everybody is empowered with the information and the tools and strategies that they need in order to do well for themselves, but they have to choose it for themselves. So I had this moment where it's hard to describe. It's almost like a yearning or an itch or something, like there was something else that I needed to do, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. But there was something else for me. That's the best way I can describe it. And I had that feeling for years. And then finally I said, I'm just going to start throwing things on the wall and seeing what sticks. I'm just going to start paying attention to what things do I do that make me feel passionate? What things do I do that make me come alive? And it just so happens the woman I was working for, she had to have surgery, and she had been invited to speak to this group of people with low vision, and she couldn't go, so she sent me in her stead. And it's very interesting. I like using lots of visual aids to present, but when you're dealing with people who can't see, you get none of that, right? It's you.
Right. So you ended up being a speaker.
Yeah, that's when I realized that I was really passionate as I was encouraging them, and I could see them really being encouraged and connecting, and I was connecting with them. That's when I realized, there's something here. So, and then the second thing that happened is that I watched Tony Robbins' documentary on Netflix, I'm Not Your Guru. And in this is a documentary where he has his signature event called Date with Destiny. He has 5,000 people come, and in 5 days, he changes the lives of 5.
Oh, wow. So I know, Dr. T, this sounds so fascinating, and we'll definitely continue the conversation. So if you could kind of give us a brief version as to where you landed. That'll be
So
awesome.
basically, that took me to my new career that is budding and growing as a speaker, author, and transformational coach.
Oh, fantastic. And I'm sure both of you are making such a huge difference in people's lives. And how can people connect with you?
I can be reached at happydoctormom@gmail.com.
And don't you have a book coming out soon? I love the title of your book. Can you please drop the title of your upcoming book? It's a great title.
Yes. So wait, let me just do. So happy is spelled out HAPPY, and doctor, full word, DOCTOR, mom, MOM @gmail.com. Yes. And if anybody is interested in being on the list for my upcoming book, which is Confessions of a Female Surgeon, please definitely send me a message.
So powerful. Very, very powerful. Thank you both for sharing your wisdom. And listeners, I'm sure that you all had several moments where you were sitting down and taking notes as to what can you do in your lives and live the lifestyle you deserve. So reach out to these phenomenal and wonderful powerhouses. Thank you, Dr. T and Graciela, Captain Mama. And thank you, listeners, for joining us, because without you, the show would not be possible. You are the soul and story of our show. Reach out to us and let us know how we can support you and who can we bring so that you can be the best version of yourself and impact others. And last, thank you, Juan, for making this show technically possible. Until next time, be well and take care.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.